Maybe this time Donald Trump has gone too far.
From the Battelle Studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Jackie Borchert, State House reporter for Cleveland.com. Chrissy Thompson, political reporter for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Gene Krebs, former state legislator, and Mary Ann Sharkey, public affairs consultant.
Donald Trump has only captured about 40% of the Republican primary vote, but he continues to dominate the campaign and its issues. The latest example is his opposition to abortion and how a ban on abortion would be enforced.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
Abortion rights supporters denounced that stance, as did anti-abortion groups who said punishment should not fall on the woman. The Trump campaign quickly reversed itself that same day, issuing a statement in line with conservative thinking. The campaign said if Congress were to pass legislation making abortion illegal and the federal courts upheld this legislation, or any state were permitted to ban abortion under state and federal law, the doctor or any other person performing this illegal act upon a woman would be held legally responsible, not the woman. Gene Krebs, where does Donald Trump stand on abortion?
Let's see, what day is it? And this is his main complaint, is that he's overly flexible and all this stuff. Look, this is the type of failure you see of a candidate that you would expect to see of somebody running for the very first time for the Ohio House of Representatives. They haven't yet thought out all the issues, where they are on this thing. This reminds me of a famous case back in the mid-90s where we actually had a state legislator who filled out both questionnaires for the National Abortion Rights Action League and Ohio Right to Life exactly the way both organizations had one filled out, assuming they'd never compared notes. Okay, so what you've got here is something, this is inexperience. You need to spend 2 months figuring out where you are on these things.
Is it lack of political experience, Mary Ann, or lack of political coaching?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I think obviously all politicians who have been in the arena for a while, to Gene's point, all know to avoid abortion. To take a stand, stick with that stand, and never move on that stand. We saw it happen with Tony Celebrezzi when he was running for governor. He switched it, and then he was defeated. You got to just stick with your stand and never move off of it.
And don't be overly, don't be overly specific about how you would enforce what you say you support, right, Chrissy? When you hear anti-abortion candidates, they just say, I'm solidly pro-life, and they leave it at that.
Right, and I mean, given the way that Governor Kasich often ends some of his statements, and he literally says, I'm pro-life, that's it, next question. It can be frustrating as a reporter not to get anything more specific, but what we saw this week was just an example of Donald Trump not even having any clear idea of what is at stake with the issue or even what he thinks on it.
And it goes to that point, is the fact that because of his unfamiliarity with the issue, not having given a lot of thought, he decided to go ahead and super pander. Okay, not just pander, this was super pandering. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've never seen anything quite like this. And then he went, well, actually, nobody actually believes that. That's a too extreme position for anybody to accept.
Jackie, why was it so outrageous, what Trump said?
Well, because no one believes that. I mean, even the most conservative, you had Ted Cruz, who is running on the conservative, conservative line there, come out and denounce that right away. You had, every pro-life, I don't know every, but most of the pro-life organizations immediately say, well, no, that's not at all what we believe, because as you've seen in Ohio and other states that have enacted abortion restrictions, the punishment is always on the doctor or the facility. That's where the burden is placed. And they're all very clear to say that it's not the woman that's going to be punished.
But why, and Chris Matthews brought this up in the interview, and Nicholas Kristof brought it up as well. Why is that? Is it out of fairness, or is it a political calculation that the woman who chooses to have an abortion, if the abortion is illegal, is not does not face some kind of penalty.
I saw this played out on Facebook today with one of the most conservative members of the Ohio House, John Becker, was weighing in on this a little bit. And he, to paraphrase here, basically said a line that we hear from a lot of abortion opponents and anti-abortion groups, which is that basically abortion hurts women. They feel like this woman knowingly has, I'm quoting here, killed their child, and so that it's harmful to their life, and they believe to the life of the fetus, and so that's sort of where they're going with this, and saying that we need to restore all life, including the life of the woman. So that's their position.
I mean, the ultimate thing is, what's the punishment? I mean, and what's the charge? I mean, you have to figure that out. You have to charge them with a crime, and you have to figure out what the punishment is. And the whole idea of hauling in a lot of probably young, poor women into court who had an abortion because, frankly, they're cutting off most of the legal paths to abortion right now, that it just would be impossible to enforce.
It would look terrible too if you have a parade of women, and especially since many abortions are women who are actually not young and poor, but have had children already, are married. It's just I think it's such a wide spectrum too of women that ultimately choose to have an abortion. That, I mean, it would be politically. You don't even know who you could affect.
But Gene, getting back to how we started this discussion, this is an issue that we would have not been talking about in this detail if it were not for Donald Trump. I mean, it's an uncomfortable discussion, but here we are parsing what it means to ban abortion.
I think that's a correct assessment. I think most people do not want to talk about this. Really would like to have it off the table. Would really like to say that the U.S. Supreme Court already settled this. Let's move on with our lives.
Yeah, but the Republican Party, that's a major platform, right?
And as you've heard me say, though, many times on the show, there's only basically two groups that are ever in play in Ohio and indeed nationally. In Ohio, we call them Copperhead Democrats. Nationally, they're called Bourbon Democrats, Reagan Democrats. The other group is what I call the NPR GOP. These are Republicans who do not listen to Rush Limbaugh from 12 to 3. They listen to NPR.
And we're glad they do.
And they're going to find this whole conversation from Trump as kind of going, this is icky.
Well, don't forget, Republican women are really the ones behind Planned Parenthood when it started. I mean, there are a lot of pro-choice Republican women.
And I think that is the crux of this whole issue, is the fact that Donald Trump's approval ratings continue to plummet with women who make up a majority of the national electorate. And this is going to be a problem for him.
And the party.
And
if he's the nominee.
That's right. Yeah. For the party has already been fighting, this whole defund Planned Parenthood thing that they ended up kind of shelving in Congress. Most of that shelving was because the party doesn't want to have a war on women, quote unquote, which Democrats often accuse them of having. And this is bringing that right to the forefront.
Okay. Running short on money and struggling to stay in the race until the convention, John Kasich faces a crucial test Tuesday in Wisconsin. If it's not a must-win state for Kasich, it's a must-not-finish-last state. The polls show Kasich behind. The Real Clear average of polls shows Ted Cruz pulling ahead of Donald Trump in recent days, with Kasich about 12 points back. Chrissy Thompson, what are his chances? What are the governor's chances in Wisconsin?
Well, he's going to finish last in Wisconsin. So you said if it's not a must-win, it's not don't finish last. Well, his campaign would disagree with you on that. They would say we have lots of states coming up, especially on April 26th, where there's many eastern seaboard states that vote, and we're going to do much, much better than Ted Cruz there. In fact, in Pennsylvania is the state they point to the most. He's polled even with Donald Trump in some polls, and so they are just continuing to try to soldier on. They've budgeted more of their money for those states. They're kind of running low on cash here, but they've pulled kind of back on Wisconsin, and they're campaigning there just because that's where everyone is for the next 2 weeks. But
well, I think you saw this week with pulling back a little bit in Wisconsin. Maybe the strategy is shifting to, if we're going to make it all the way to Cleveland and we only have X amount of dollars, we're going to need to kind of spread that out over the next couple months so that we're not completely off the radar, that we're still a force.
So this is a token campaign?
No, I think he's got a possibility coming in second in Wisconsin.
I
do.
agree.
I can see him. I can see Trump. Trump has really hurt himself. He's on a downward spiral right now, and I can definitely see a possibility of
It's
Kasich
true
coming
that
in
we
second.
it's true that we don't have any polling right now that reflects what has happened with these abortion comments. So if that takes hold, we've often said that something like that is going to kill Donald Trump's polling, and it hasn't happened yet. But he is neck and neck with Cruz right now in Wisconsin, which is why I do think it's still likely that Kasich finishes third, just because Cruz and Trump are kind of splitting the vote.
It seems like some of the anti-Trump vote is heading to Cruz and not to Kasich, so that,
There's a lot of momentum with that, with some of the endorsements that Cruz picked up in the past week and a half.
If John Kasich, Gene Krebs, if John Kasich cannot do well in Wisconsin or beat expectations, can he really expect to do well in New
Yes.
York and New Jersey?
He doesn't. All he has to do is stay in the race, because I went out on the limb on this. Gosh, who knows how many months ago now? We're going to have an open convention, and he needs to stay in the race and needs to stay relevant. It will be held in his home state, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of folks who believe that Kasich has a distinct avenue if it's an open convention and he's the remaining adult in the room, in his own words. He can either be president or easily walk out there as VP.
In 1920, Warren Harding came in as a long shot into the convention. It was an open convention, and he got it after several days and many ballots later, and he became president of the United States. That's exactly the path that John Kasich is trying to take right now.
And the modern boring convention is a relatively recent phenomenon.
Right.
Historically, they've all been a lot more messy than anything we've seen for 50 years.
All right. Well, a year ago, remember a year ago when Columbus was trying to get one of those boring modern conventions, the Republican National Convention? Well, no doubt city leaders remain disappointed they did not land it. But they likely are not as disappointed as they once were. Cleveland's preparations for the convention have become more anxious, fearing, make that expecting. Pro and anti-Donald Trump demonstrations city officials have begun. Security precautions. They have checked their protest insurance policy. They have clarified that guns are not allowed in the convention hall. Marianne Sharkey, you are working with Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, on this
Destination
convention.
Cleveland.
What is the mood?
Well, the mood is very, very anxious. I think you described it perfectly. I think sometimes you get what you wish for, and now Cleveland is starting to say, at least a lot of the citizens are. I don't think the leadership, but they wanted to have an opportunity to show off Cleveland, to show great things happening in Cleveland. They're spending millions and millions of dollars on public square and transportation and RTA and cleaning up the neighborhoods and cleaning up the pathways and doing a huge remodeling of the airport, and it was an opportunity to make Cleveland, shine. Well, obviously, if we have a Chicago-type situation here at the convention, Cleveland will not be shining. I do feel confident that all the right preparations are being made, and Cleveland will be as prepared as anyone can be.
Gene, do you participate in 1968 Democratic convention mess like we had in Chicago?
No, it'll be a different type of situation, because you're going to have MoveOn.org and a lot of other radical left semi-anarchist groups come forward, and
They come to all the conventions.
They come to all the conventions. They will be there en masse, and their whole goal will be try to disrupt and not allow a democratic republic, to proceed. And you're going to have that. It doesn't matter where you have it or if it's going to be, what's going on inside the convention hall, I think, will probably not spill over as much as what some people are saying to the outside.
Jackie, any predictions?
Well, I think if it does become messy, as people are anticipating now with all of the with Trump and all the conflict within the party, it will be of no fault of the city of Cleveland. I think, like Marianne said, the poor city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County have been working very hard from even before when they were pitching, the RNC to hold the convention there. They're putting forth 110%, and it's unfortunate that this opportunity could be tarnished by a controversial convention.
Well, Mayor Daley and the Chicago police took a lot of heat for how they
Yeah.
handled the demonstrators in Chicago.
Right.
And you don't want that happening in
Cleveland police are much better at this than certainly Chicago was, and really have proven to be better than almost any city in the country. You know, we've had a lot of issues in Cleveland, and we've had quite a few demonstrations, and the Cleveland police have shown wonderful restraint, great restraint, and do know what they're doing. It is a big city.
Which would be worse, Chrissy, the anti-Trump protesters who we've seen in Chicago and other cities who protest his views, or the pro-Trump protesters mad that he didn't get the nomination or his nomination's in doubt?
I do not know the answer to that question. I mean, I don't know if any.
Yeah.
I
would the
think
passion be, I guess?
I guess there would be more organization among the maybe Democratic protesters, and I think probably the real danger is that some of these Trump supporters, get very, very angry and upset and out of hand, and he's going to have to do some work to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, Black Lives Matter has already said they're going to disrupt this convention in Cleveland.
Are they making preparations, Marianne, to try to separate them, to try to keep on this block you can be pro-Trump, this
Well, the
block
Secret
anti-Trump?
Service has not yet divulged its plans on how to do this. And frankly, they're in charge of the perimeter, what they call the perimeter. And so the Secret Service, but usually they have protest zones. So, but as I said, Black Lives Matter has already said they're going to disrupt this convention.
I mean, but getting inside of they can't. What can they possibly do to disrupt the actual proceedings?
Inside, that's what I mean. And I'd like to encourage everybody in Central Ohio that for the past dozen years, the mayor here has consistently said unkind things about Cleveland and Cincinnati. And right now, I will flat out
But
tell
the
you.
current mayor, the former mayor, you're talking about,
Yeah,
Michael Cleveland.
but in my opinion, downtown Cleveland right now is much more vibrant than downtown Columbus.
Yeah, well, I would agree.
Because and you've got to go there. I know. This is the response. What? Really? Yes.
No, it is.
It really is. More millennials are out there at 6 o'clock at night.
Millennials.
That's very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is true. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and that's the future. That's the entrepreneurs of tomorrow.
Well, we'll see. Protesters first, then entrepreneurs.
Protesters today,
I
entrepreneurs
know.
tomorrow.
But Cleveland has a fantastic story to tell.
So the question is whether John Kasich can turn that story into his story, which
Yes.
he successfully did during the debate in Cleveland in August last year, and which he hopes to be able to do in July.
Okay. In the Democratic race for president, Bernie Sanders is still hanging around, keeping Hillary Clinton from completely focusing on the general election. Sanders continues to push for a one-on-one debate with Clinton in New York. The Clinton campaign has been hesitant to agree, but seems to be coming around so long as Sanders changes his tone. This despite Sanders running a largely positive campaign against Hillary Clinton. Jackie Borchard, given what's going on the GOP side, how can you complain about Bernie Sanders' tone? He hasn't run a negative ad.
I know. It's like I was trying to find a good analogy for this, and I mean, it's like the nicest person you know trying to pick a fight with the nicest person you know. I mean, there has, compared to the GOP, there has not been the level of attacks and vitriol, and so it is interesting to see that. I think really what the Clinton campaign is doing here is they don't want to debate. I mean, Bernie Sanders' campaign pulled this. Debates are usually settled behind closed doors between the two campaigns. There are negotiations that take place back and forth, and then you have the debate and everything goes well. Sanders' campaign pulled this out to the public where they didn't need to make it an issue, to really put the pressure on the Clinton campaign to say, we think we're going to win. We don't need to do this. But they can't do that yet because, Hillary runs the risk of alienating the Bernie supporters. And she has said in the past that, we should debate and let this go on. But I think, if she could tell you exactly what she thinks, she would say, I'm over this.
And I would maintain your entire premise of your question frame is wrong. Hillary will not be the nominee. I've said this since December of 2014. And I'm not sure it's going to be Bernie, but it will not be her. Her campaign's fading as we
like
speak.
the opposite Bob Clegg. Bob Clegg in 2008 kept saying, Hillary's going to be the nominee, Hillary's going to be the nominee. He wouldn't give it up. Even after Barack was sworn in as president, he wouldn't give it up.
They've done tests inside of MRI machines, planes, people speaking to them. I know the science behind this. She will not be the nominee.
Does Hillary Clinton win Wisconsin? And what happens if she doesn't?
I don't think she does. No. And what happens is she goes into New York and tries to win it very, very big. But no, I think Bernie's going to win Wisconsin. It's a perfect state for him on all the trade issues and NAFTA. It plays, and there's a lot of young people, university activists in Wisconsin. So I think it's his state. Hillary is remarkably thin-skinned. She blamed like a Greenpeace activist who came up and asked her a question about fossil fuels, and she just snapped at him and said it's Bernie Sanders' campaign spreading all these lies. And of course, Sanders came out immediately and said, "That wasn't my question. That was a Greenpeace activist." They feel very strongly about that issue.
Thank you for making my point.
What happens to the Democratic convention, Chrissy, if Bernie Sanders is not conceded?
If he hasn't conceded, I mean,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's going to come to that. I mean, she will have a majority of delegates going into that convention, and I mean, I don't know if he hasn't conceded. I guess they will vote.
As long as he has the majority.
They will vote, and I mean, it would be better for him to concede so that he gets to make a speech or something. So.
And that would be better for Hillary as well, because then that's the big question mark here is if Hillary is the nominee, will the Bernie supporters line up behind Hillary when so many of them say, no, absolutely not, we won't?
And the Ds have the same problem the Rs have, which is who has higher core negatives, Hillary or Trump?
Trump does.
Trump does
Trump
now.
does for now.
No, Trump is
For now.
up to like 70%.
I think he just boosted
Yeah.
his score
Right,
like
she's
last week.
she's only 56.
She's about 52,
I mean,
56.
Yeah.
Gina's right in
The
that.
only one on the plus side right now is Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
Because how can you not like Bernie Sanders? I mean, it's like Uncle Bernie, you know.
No.
Speaking of high approval ratings,
I can't back a socialist. Makes me twitch.
Speaking of high approval ratings, Ohio's two largest electric utilities have won approval to increase rates to guarantee profits for aging power plants. AEP and First Energy claim the guarantees will help them transition away from inefficient coal and nuclear plants. Consumer advocates call the guarantees a bailout and say the utilities should move to more efficient plants and renewable energy sources. The utilities did not get all they wanted. The rate increases are capped at 5% the first 2 years, and both companies must invest in solar and wind projects. Gene Krebs, you oppose these guarantees. Are those concessions or requirements enough to make this a fair deal?
No way near. And in fact, if I stroke out right now, please name this little studio after me. In this one fell swoop, the PUCO has managed to unravel 6 years of tax cuts by the Kasich administration. And we're not done, because we've not heard from Dayton Power and Light and Duke Energy. This could end up, we cut taxes as Republican ideology so as to make the state more competitive, keep your costs of doing business low. What PUCO did today was they raised the cost of business. We're not talking about that. The other thing is nobody's talking about is this the end of it? Will there be further bailouts for AEP and First Energy? No one's talking about that. What makes us think that they're not going to come back to us in 2 years and go, not enough, we need more? Oh, you're in for a penny, now you got to be in for a pound.
Well,
This was a bad, harmful decision for Ohio. Okay, stroke's over.
Was it as bad, Marianne?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have utility regulation because people have no choice. And we have regulations to help keep costs down and make them reasonable. This decision undercut all that. This is the rate holders, decision. It's not one for the people of Ohio, and it does undercut our economic progress that we've had in this state because it's going to be a lot more costly to do business in Ohio.
What's interesting is that the decision treated the ratepayers, you and I who pay our utility bill, as shareholders in a sense, but they didn't get to vote on it,
Right.
which is, I just wonder. I don't know if there would be any way to leverage that in the future, but I think it is a controversial decision.
Jackie, they are promising credits towards the end of this 8-year deal.
Right.
And
Right, they've
rates
admitted
could
that,
come down.
Right,
they say.
they've admitted that that will cost people more upfront, but in the long term, there will be a savings. Now, Gene, I'll let you, I don't agree with that
I know,
necessarily.
yeah,
I'm
I
just
know.
saying
That's what they're saying,
that's
yeah.
what
I
they're
know.
saying based on the math that they have done. And I mean that was part of this deal as well, was that them giving that assurance.
Well, they said the same thing when they were retrofitting, the coal plants. They said the same thing when we got nuclear energy. They keep saying that. Well, in the end, you'll get it'll be cheaper.
All right, we got to get to our off-the-record final parting shots. Marianne, you're up first.
I would say that John Kasich, who's doing his State of the State speech this week, will be playing to a national audience and brag about everything he's done for the state of Ohio as governor.
Gene.
Many State House insiders are so convinced that Kasich will be on the national ticket and will win in that capability that some members of the General Assembly are already positioning themselves to be named now Lieutenant Governor Mary Taylor's lieutenant governor when she becomes governor, just proving that the rules have changed.
Interesting. Chrissy.
I would just say, going with the Kasich theme, the next date to circle on your calendar is April 26th. That's going to be really the next decision day for the Kasich administration as to whether they're going to whether they do well in those eastern states and whether they can continue.
Jackie.
For a non-Kasich comment, if you're out and about this weekend, you will probably be asked to sign a petition to support medical marijuana in Ohio. The first ballot initiative was approved this week by the ballot board, and they have 305,000 signatures they need to collect to get on the ballot.
John Kasich took flack for eating his pizza with a knife and fork, much like Donald Trump did about a year or so ago. I was in New York and I ate my pizza the right way. I folded it, and you do so for particular kinds of New York pizza so you can drain the grease off the pizza. That's why you hold it that way, so the flows right down. So the fork and knife doesn't do that.
Thank you for that visual.
That's good pizza, though. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the discussion on Facebook, Twitter, our website, WOSU.org. And don't forget the WOSU Public Media mobile app for your smartphone and tablet. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.